Yo, we might have finally exposed one of the reasons for Trump's tariff and global trade war. Trump wiped trillions of dollars off global markets. But what if we told you that part of this plan was to secretly acquire more Bitcoin? You heard that right. That isn't clickbait. We'll get to the video in just a sec. Today, we're going to be exploring why we might have all been distracted by this global trade war and explain how Bitcoin could be the final move in this game of 4D chess. Before we jump into the discussion, let me play you guys a clip of Beau and Anthony Pompliano, where Beau tells Pomp that part of this tariff revenue potentially might be used to acquire more Bitcoin. Let's check it out.
But then I've also seen Lutnick and others talk about this idea of, well, maybe there's external revenue that we can drive and be able to use that. And so, like, how are you guys maybe from a framework standpoint thinking about, okay, what are the ways that we could go buy more Bitcoin?
Well, I think that Senator Lummis has really an interesting idea with the Bitcoin Act of 2025, which I know has taken the community by storm. But here, what you would do is you'd revalue the gold certificates that we currently have at Treasury. Most of which are valued, I think, around like $43 an ounce, which is,
a lot lower than what it's really worth.
Correct. Yeah. So now we're sitting at what, $3,100 an ounce, with being the price of gold. And if you took that value, what you could do is use that extra funding in order to buy more Bitcoin that could be used for the reserve. But that's just one idea. And, that's currently circulating its way through Capitol Hill, and we'll see how many co-sponsors she can get and how she can pull her colleagues on board. But we're looking at many creative ways, whether it be from, tariffs, whether it be from something else. I mean, there's literally countless ways in which you can do this. And, I'll defer to, some of our members inside of the interagency working group to see what ideas they come up with inside of their own shops. But we'll look at everything. Everything's on the table. And like we've said, we want as much as we can get. So we're going to make sure that no stone is unturned.
So, I mean, there you have Beau, right? Basically admitting that, hey, some of this tariff revenue will be used to acquire more Bitcoin. Opti, if you can point everyone in the right direction on YouTube, please, it'd be great. We gotta get 1 week where everything just goes smoothly. That would be nice. But this opens like a larger discussion in terms of what are tariffs. What is the income tax? What happened in 1913? But before we jump into it, I do want to play you guys a clip of President Trump talking about the income tax. Let's check it out.
Los aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax?
You're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses. Nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. In the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money. And that's when our nation was relative.
All right. So, I mean, he's talking about this period in American history back before the income tax was established in 1913. And the goal of the Trump administration, we've heard Howard Lutnick talk about this. We've heard Trump talk about this. The goal of the Trump administration is to potentially replace the income tax with tariff revenue. Now, I think the question on everybody's mind is that even humanly possible, right? Back in the day, this was between 1789 and 1913 that the federal government funded itself this way. And I think the question on everybody's mind was this possible? Well, it was possible for a multitude of reasons. So first of all, back then, the government was much smaller. And this, I think, is a larger question that I think not as many Bitcoiners are asking themselves. And it's like a kind of conclusion that I came to this morning. I literally woke up and like some of the first things that came to mind was, I said, modern politics is a popularity contest where the winner gains control of the money printer. That's the first thing I said. Second thing I said is, I'm convinced that even with the best intentions, the most talented people, shrinking the size of government is impossible unless money is fully separated from state. And if you think about this, right, you have Elon Musk, the dude literally invented self-driving cars and self-landing rockets in the government, and his sole task is to cut spending. And look at how much push they're literally setting Tesla dealerships on fire. Okay. Look at how much pushback he's gotten. And you would think, right? Like you would think, okay, yeah, like we should cut deficit spending, inefficient, spending, inefficient payments. That's probably a good idea. But it seems like not everyone is on board. It seems like everyone is not on board with that idea. And if you think about it from like a very fundamental, basic level as to why that isn't the case, well, I mean, like, think about it. If you have been living your life with access to money printer money, helicopter money, however you want to call it, first of all, you would have kind of a distorted view of reality, but also you'd be dependent on it. And it's not your fault, I would say, right? So since the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1913, since the establishment of the income tax in 1913, it's not a coincidence that they were both established on the same year. You've seen the huge increase of the role of government in people's lives. And I think that's where we need to move the Overton window, because the question I've been kind of going down this rabbit hole as of late, where I am in my Bitcoin journey, is not what is money, but what is government? Like, what should be the role of government in people's lives? And I think even if Elon pulls magic and the Trump administration pulls magic, we're just one administration away from all of that being reversed. So the end goal here of Bitcoiners, despite all the wins we've gotten so far, major wins, the repeal of SAB 121, the end of Operation Choke Point 2.0, the freedom of Ross Ulbricht, I think we have to keep our eye on the ball and remember why we are here. And the reason as to why we are here is because we want to end the Fed. We want to end the Fed. Like, let's speak plainly here. That is our goal. That is what we want to do. We want to end central banking. We want to end the Federal Reserve. And I'll make multiple cases as to why we should do that. And remember, this is baked into the Genesis block of Bitcoin. It says Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks. Every time they print money, it's a wealth redistribution mechanism from the lower and middle classes that don't have the means to save in assets to the extremely wealthy and to the government. It's a racket. It's a scheme, right? There's no transparency in the central bank's ledger. The government has the ability to create money out of nothing, which misaligns incentives. It becomes a government not by the people for the people. It becomes a government by the government for the government. They don't have an incentive to do good by the people because their form of revenue is not only income tax, but it's the money printer. So you have this vast concentration of power in Washington, D.C., and you see the total enrichment of the political class. And it's become incredibly evident. And if you want to know what is broken with society, it's that, right? Larry Lepard just wrote an incredible book called The Big Print, and he identifies that the problem in modern society, and it all stems from this, is inflation. It's currency debasement. And we don't feel it as much here in the US, but if you live in the global South or you live in the developing world, you already know this. You already have to live with double-digit inflation. So Satoshi created a solution to this problem. And I think as much as we've won over the last 6 months from a policy and regulatory perspective, I think a lot of us have lost the eye on the prize. I see a lot of people talk about MSTR. I see a lot of people talk about MSTY. And yes, numbers go up. It's very bullish. I like those things. But remember why we're here. Remember why we're here. We used to say this. We used to start the show off with we'll be your guide through the separation of money and state. And I think we kind of, we've drifted away a little bit as a community from that, as Bitcoin has become institutionalized, as Bitcoin has been accepted not only by Wall Street, but also by DC. But I think it's important to keep in mind, what is our goal here? It's to fix the money, fix the world. And if you want to fix the money, you want to fix the world. Bitcoin isn't a commodity. Bitcoin is money, right? So anyways, that's just my 2 cents. And that's just something to keep in mind, guys. Like, we've had a government in the past in the United States where there was no income tax. The government was solely funded by tariffs. The government was solely funded by public land sales and taxes on specific items like whiskey and tobacco and all that. The income tax is a relatively new phenomenon that was established in 1913. And the goal of this was to create more quote unquote equity in society, to create a social safety net, and to put it bluntly, to fund wars, right? I love Ron Paul's quote, right? It's not a coincidence that the bloodiest century in human history was also the century of central banking. So I think Trump has done an incredible job highlighting 1913. And there was a campaign speech where Elon Musk, went live and he just started talking about essentially, how the Federal Reserve is wasteful and how Doge is going to cut spending. But I just don't think we're doing enough to really highlight what the issue here is. The issue is the Federal Reserve. The issue is central banking. The issue is fiat money. And this is a relatively new phenomenon. People have normalized it, but it's created a situation where our generation, if you're a millennial or Gen Zer, you are significantly poorer than our parents. And that's a fact. And you have to identify why that's happening. It's central banking. It's fiat money. It's an unfair, to use the words, right? With the, just because you have intentions, you should judge the outcome and not the intention. Central banking has created the most unequitable system you could ever have imagined. It is one of the primary causes for wealth inequality, right? And that was one of the reasons as to why they say we need income tax for this, we need, a central bank for this, is going to stabilize the economy, blah, 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 blah. It didn't even fulfill its intended goals. And we have to really think as sovereign individuals, as Bitcoiners, do we really want this increasingly growing bureaucracy that is going to continue to encroach onto our freedoms? Because that is the only way. There is you can't stop this. It's inevitable. Like it has to grow. It has to grow. It's inevitable. And do we really want to live in that type of world? Well, I mean, it's been proven, maybe it was more than 100 years ago, that the world's definitely changed. But I mean, do we really need to live in a world where income tax is a thing? Do we really need to live in a world where central banking is a thing? You could have made the argument that before Bitcoin, you needed it. Before Bitcoin, you needed this. I'm starting to seriously question the system, because you go in there with a mandate from the American people to change the system, and all you're getting is pushback. And if you think about what is actually being asked, it was just like, okay, we just want to audit the government spending, and it's politics. It's insanity. Imagine a world where politics doesn't have as much importance that it has today. The reason politics has so much importance is because it's incredibly important which side wins, because depending on which side wins, that side controls the money printer. That it's a popularity contest to see who controls the money printer. It's absurd. It's insanity, right? And Lynn likes this tweet every time I post about it. I think a lot of the instability, a lot of the moral decay, a lot of the insanity that you see in today's world comes from broken money. It really does. I think it corrupts the soul. I think it corrupts the spirit. There's something, it's biblical if you think about it. Just think about it for a second. The fiat money is based on the basis of it is based on theft, right? It's like essentially every time the government prints money, they're stealing from you, right? Income tax is one thing. It's direct. It's over the table. But most people, if you ask them what inflation was, they would have no answer. They would have no answer at all, right? So anyways, I think it's incredibly important that we continue to talk about this topic. The Overton window, this is completely outside of the Overton window. We're trying to move that window to make this topic palatable to most people. But yes, I mean, great. If the Trump administration used tariffs to buy Bitcoin, let's see if it happens. But I want to continue to hear that topic over and over again. 1913. What else happened in 1913? This isn't just about the income tax. And I think that's incredibly important to talk about. Anyways, we do have a very special guest today. We have Beau joining us on the show from Abundant Minds, and of course, my legendary co-host Optimus Fields. A little bit of a hiccup this morning. No, Opti.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with YouTube, but hey, everyone's hanging out in the right video. So today I will be the guy to say, smash the like button, guys. Get this video to get pushed. I don't know what happened with our streaming software, but it's live. We're good now, Nico.
Sweet. So I'm gonna pass it on to you, Opti. What are your thoughts, man? What's your take on all this?
Well, I'm not gonna rehash what Nico said. Nico got on his soapbox this morning. Love to see it. It's Tuesday. We're doing good here. We're surviving. But just kind of talking about Beau Hines and that interview with Pomp yesterday, and this idea of using tariff revenues to buy Bitcoin. At this point, it feels like they're just kind of spitballing ideas. I know they've been talking about this we're going to figure out budget neutral ways to stack Bitcoin. So I think they're kind of just spitballing ideas, and they are kind of pushing some rhetoric to push the narratives around the tariff global trade war going on. Make it seem like a good thing. And of course, all the crazy stuff around the tariffs, like there's tariffs 1 week, then they roll it back, and then now there's a 90-day pause. But there's exceptions to the trade war going on. Honestly, it seems like they rushed this tariff stuff. And I mean, on the one hand, it did scare off a lot of countries. Maybe trust the plan. 5D chess guys are vindicated right now, and the whole plan was just to get China at the negotiation table, which doesn't seem like that's what they wanted to do in the first place. Anyways, it seems a little convoluted right now. But if Trump is really going to eliminate the income tax and just go full tariffs, and we have Elon Musk talking about ending the Fed, as a Bitcoiner, I'm all for this. I think this would be great. I am totally on board with this. Now, the feasibility of all this happening, probably not going to be feasible. As you said, the federal government is huge. I forget what the statistics are, but isn't the federal government literally the biggest employer in the world right now? The U.S. federal government is the biggest employer in the world right now. And again, it's all about incentives, and these people aren't going to eliminate their own jobs. So I think they're going to have to be forced. And we were actually kind of talking about it and joking about it before the show. It's like there's really only two options here. And one is really bad and one is less bad, but it's still not that good. And the really bad one is just the fiat system, the federal governments all around the world, anyone that is backed by the money printer, it implodes. It just implodes because of something breaks. And that's not good for society. Now, the least bad option here is like a slow, gradual kind of implosion, so people can get on the exit route or on the exit boat. So either way, we're literally frogs in boiling water at this point. We all know they have to keep printing money. As Lynn Alden always says, that nothing stops this train. As Larry Lepard has been doubling down, the big print is coming. Do we know when it happens? No, but we all know, at least if you're a Bitcoiner, maybe not everyone, but if you're a Bitcoiner, you know how this ends. There will be an obscene amount of money printing, and this is why we constantly say you need to buy Bitcoin. Like the only winning play here is to play the game and just stack Bitcoin. This is the only way out of this game. And, the losing move here is sitting on the sidelines and trusting, that these institutions know what they're doing. Like, take back your life. Start to think for yourself. Start to save in assets that are government neutral here, that are outside of the traditional financial system. And this is Bitcoin. So it is interesting. We are seeing a lot of economic TradFi shakeups right now. I'm definitely on board with this. Obviously, the boomers in Wall Street is freaking out, and this is probably why there's so much convolution going on here. Like one week they do something and then they'll kind of like, oh wait, actually we didn't really mean that, we got to roll this back because Wall Street's getting nuked. I think they're getting pushed into a corner here, and eventually something has to give, and we don't want to see everyone around us get absolutely devastated. This is why we constantly come out here, try to make videos that do get pushed in YouTube so other people know, like, okay, I need to protect myself. This is why we always have these conversations with friends and family that, like, yo, you just need some Bitcoin. Like, you don't need to go full bull-tard Bitcoiner, Bitcoin maxi, and, sell all your shares. All you need is to have some Bitcoin, get some exposure, take it into custody, because you never know. As we've been saying for a long time, like, even if your portfolio is 1% Bitcoin and 99% all other fiat equities and stocks and, treasuries and all that stuff, that 1% could literally save your life. And this is what we're talking about. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Yes, a lot of the doom and gloom we see is maybe a little blown out of proportion here, but I'd rather have a little bit of insurance than have no insurance. So, I rant a little bit here. So, Beau, jump in here. What's your thoughts on this topic?
I think that it's all good. I mean, we're finding ways, and there's ideas being thrown around of how you can funnel any kind of excess into Bitcoin. And to me, that's effectively them coming up with the best strategy to take waste out of a wasteful system. And I see no problem with that if they're successful in implementing that. It is budget neutral. It's accretive to the balance sheet. They're keeping us a global financial superpower in a way that's based on a system that we can all get behind. And going back to the talk about 1913, Dalio in his books talks about things that have changed the world that have happened before, but have not happened before in the lifetime of anybody that's living today. So the last time that we were living in a very different system was before anybody who's walking on Earth today was ever inhabiting the world. So in many ways, it might seem impossible to go back to something like that, but I also like how he talks about the progression of human evolution being these kind of upward spirals where even if we're looking at a new world with new technology and the surface level expression of a new system looks very different, there's these themes that play out through history. And the separation of money and state is not a new idea. In fact, it's an old idea that's worked very well in the past. And even though gold is far inferior in terms of its technical qualities to Bitcoin, it is the closest analog that we have to living on a sound money standard. And we've got this template of what a world looked like before we had the current system that we live in now. And so even if nobody's lived through that, we still have at least a hint, an example, a template that we can call back on and use as a guidepost for us to redesign the new system. And whether you're talking about Dalio's book, Principles for a Changing World Order, or something like The Fourth Turning, I think the key here is that you need to be studying and looking at what previous periods of intense change have looked like. And it's never simple. It's never clean. But on the other end of navigating the chaos is a much better system for everybody. And I think that as long as we can be as centered as possible in that process and keep holding to what we know a better system could look like, that we're ultimately designing something that's going to function much better, even if there's an interim of uncertainty, chaos, great change. And I'm just happy that, a couple of years ago, we were worried about whether there was going to be intense regulation around our space in general. And now we're getting a strategic reserve. The Trump family's involved in mining. We're looking at spending tariff money to potentially acquire more, selling gold reserves to acquire more. I mean, there's been a huge cataclysmic change in a positive way in a very short period of time. And that's only bullish to me and only positive to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. Very political answer. I like that. Beau. Very, 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 very political answer. But I would say yes, it definitely. If you are to believe the whole fourth turning theory, I definitely believe we're living through those times right now. It's a period in history of intense change. And I think if you think about where we were 5 years ago, we could have never have imagined, the president of the United States dropping Bitcoin by name, holding a so-called crypto summit at the White House, holding some of the largest players, hosting them, talking about policy, ending any hostility towards the industry. You never could have imagined that, 4 or 5 years ago. So could you imagine where we'll be 5 years from now? And something that we always have taken pride, here at Simply is, when this whole thing was happening with Operation Choke Point 2.0, I remember we were one of the first to endorse Trump because we felt like it was like, look, like they're arresting the Samurai Wallet developers, they're arresting Tornado Cash developers. Like, you have a pro Bitcoin candidate and an anti Bitcoin candidate in a two-party system. You have no choice. Now I'm saying we need more, right? So it's not just about Trump in the White House. Trump in the White House is great, but what I would like to see from the next president, regardless of whether they're Democrat or Republican, is the idea of the Federal Reserve has been a net negative on most Americans, and the Federal Reserve, the idea of ending the Federal Reserve, we move the Overton window on that. In my opinion, just feeling the vibes, just saying that, I could tell it's completely outside of the Overton window. And I'm trying to force it inside the Overton window, inside the discussion, because, yeah, we got a pro-Bitcoin president in the White House. Great. But again, first 100 days, everything that has happened, me and Opti were talking about this backstage, like it's been good so far, right? Maybe we're getting a little bit too greedy in terms of what our expectations are. But yeah, I think I remember Andreas Antonopoulos. There was no Bitcoin content back in the era that I got into Bitcoin. It was like Andreas's lectures. That was the only thing that existed. And I remember he kept talking about this global cabal, this central banking cabal, which is, the whole central banking system, the way that it functions. And back then, Bitcoiners were a little bit more militant in terms of what their end goal was, in terms of effectuating change. And what I'm seeing this cycle is complacency. Like, we saw some of the biggest influencers just basically say, hey, I'm selling my entire stack, I'm putting it into ETFs. We have to remember why we're here. We have to remember why we're here. We have to remember what actually effectuates change. What actually effectuates change is a lot of people taking their Bitcoin and putting into self-custody. And by doing so, they're reclaiming back their financial sovereignty. That being said, I do want to give a shout out to, of course, our lead sponsor, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. If you go to bitcoinwell.com/simply today, or you use promo code simplybtc or simply, I do want to tell you guys that you get a chance to win up to 1 million Satoshis just by signing up. So go check it out. Go to bitcoinwell.com, put in your email address, takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up. What makes BitcoinWell different is that it's a completely non-custodial exchange. And if you're a higher net worth individual, you can use BitcoinWell Infinite. So BitcoinWell Infinite is tailored for people that are looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. You book a call. You're going to have a dedicated BitcoinWell representative. Go check them out. They're absolutely awesome. And every time you buy Bitcoin on BitcoinWell, you earn BitcoinWell points. And you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. We're doing it live for you guys right now. We're tossing a coin into the Wishing Well. Scan the QR code. You win 500 sats. So guys, go check out bitcoinwell.com. Use promo code SIMPLY. And you get an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. Let's start the show. We're going to hit the numbers.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, everybody, we are back. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $84,930 sats per dollar, or sorry, block height 892,570 sats per dollar, 1,177, market cap 1.69 trillion, Bitcoin versus gold market cap 7.39%, percentage issued 94.53%, decline from all-time high negative 22.2%, realized monetary inflation 0.85%. In the grand scheme of things, we are just getting the party started. Anyways, Opti was talking about this with you guys yesterday. Of course, we had President Bukele and President Trump. The first Bitcoin presidents meet at the White House yesterday. It was absolutely historic. Max Kaiser says 220K in play. And here is the Bitwise CIO essentially making the case as to why Bitcoin is heading to $1 million. Just check out the clip.
Okay, I have to ask this because I know people who are watching are wondering this, that now that they've heard you say it. We hear these bold predictions for Bitcoin, like $1 million, $1.5 million. Now, if you take what you've just said, looking at the price of gold in comparison to Bitcoin and what that tells you about Bitcoin's future, when could we get to Bitcoin over $1 million?
Yeah, I think 5 to 10 years is about right. I think 1 or 2 more cycles. Look, a few things are true. The vast majority of people who need to own Bitcoin don't yet own it at all. We need $1 trillion of buying into the Bitcoin market for institutions to just level up to a neutral portfolio. I think there's no way that happens without pushing Bitcoin's price up significantly. I'd also say, you know, having watched various technologies over the past 20 or 30 years, everyone's always skeptical of the digital version of analog goods. But find me another industry where the digital version didn't just catch up, but eventually surpassed the physical good. It's happened in media, it's happened in advertising, it's happened in movies, it's happened in streaming. It's going to happen in store of value assets. So how long could it take? I think 5 or 10 years, right? Remember, 10 years ago, where was Bitcoin right now? It was 2014, it was trading for a few $100s. Today, we're talking about $100,000. It's not that hard to imagine that in 10 years, it's easily at $1 million or more. I think it'll happen by 2029, but it could be, could be anywhere around then. But
all right. So, I mean, I want to get your guys' thoughts on that. I mean, I think it's too early. I would be happy just for Bitcoin to hit 100K first before we talk about this whole $1 million stuff. But Opti was showing this to me before we went live, the corporate Bitcoin adoption of Q1 2025. And as you could see, it's just blown. It's just gone crazy. It's just gone absolutely berserk. It's gone nuts. And the reason for that is simple. Obviously, the complete change of the regulatory environment towards Bitcoin, the end of the hostility, I think is a big reason as to why this is happening. If you take a look at, Q1 of 2020 or Q2 of 2020 compared to Q1 of 2025, you guys could see it's night and day. One of the coping mechanisms we used in 2018, was, hey, the institutions are coming. The institutions are coming. That was a lie. That didn't happen until like 2 or 3 years later. But it did happen. And now the institutions are finally here. So if I could tell my 2018 self, hey, man, the cope is right. It's just, you know, many years later, you know, maybe I would have, I try to get as much Bitcoin as I can at that era, but, you know, maybe I would have tried harder. But the institutions are definitely here. The price isn't showing that, which is quite interesting. But this is the reason as to why the Bitwise CIO is making the case. You want to know why he's making the case? This is why he's making the case, because he's seeing this data. And again, it's infinity divided by 21 million. If every millionaire wanted to acquire just one Bitcoin, they physically could not do so. There's 63 millionaires around the world. There's 63 million millionaires around the world. There's only 21 million Bitcoin, and you can estimate 3 to 4 of that 21 million are gone. So, you know, that's just, if every millionaire wanted to acquire one Bitcoin, they physically could not. Now put governments into this discussion, put institutions into this discussion, and then you'll see, you know, why he's coming up with these absurd numbers. Now, I think what all of us want to know is that from this cycle, from a news perspective, it's been incredibly bullish, but from a price perspective, you know, clearly it hasn't reflected that. It hasn't shown that. So, you know, I would say patience is the name of the game. Stay humble, stack sats. I'm going to pass it on to Beau. Beau, what are your thoughts, man? What's going on here? Why hasn't the price pumped? What's going on? Is it being suppressed by Wall Street? Is there a giant conspiracy? What are your thoughts, man?
I never try to time price with news. And I think that those are often the biggest mistakes that you can make is try to draw a correlate between the price and what's going on in the news. In reality, you've got so many more large long-term factors that play a bigger role in whether price is pumping or not. And to your point, I mean, we thought institutions were coming years ago. And instead of getting institutions really in droves first, I mean, we kind of leapfrogged where we've now got national reserves that are almost getting ahead of most of the large companies in the world, which I don't think people saw coming. I don't think people thought that a government would move more quickly on this than corporate entities. So that's got to be surprising to some people. And, you know, Parker Lewis wrote a great book on this, Gradually Then Suddenly. I mean, 5 years might be a really long time frame if we have that suddenly moment where it's broadly accepted that this is the best non-sovereign store of value in the world, and this is where liquidity should go. And by the way, it's a tiny fraction of current liquidity, and even one large player deciding that this is a meaningful part of their portfolio really changes the game in a price sense. So I think that it's one of those, like, water doesn't boil at 211, but it does boil at 212 kind of things, where we're just sitting right there on the edge, waiting for that one big catalyst to come in and really shoot the rocket off. But you don't want to wait until that happens to get allocated. So I think smart money is in an accumulation phase right now. And when it hits, it hits. But I don't ever try to make any timing predictions.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think what we've learned from this cycle is no one has any idea what the price of Bitcoin is going to do. Everyone has gotten it catastrophically wrong in every single sense. So it's just, you know, just sit back, enjoy the ride, try to acquire as much sats as possible, and live your life. That's what I would say. Opti, what are your thoughts on this, man, before we move on to the news segment?
Yeah, well, first of all, I really love that analogy, Beau, of, you know, water doesn't boil at 211, but it does at 212. And it does really feel that that is where we are right now. It really is only going to take a couple really, you know, big buyers to come into the market to really like move the needle here. And, you know, everyone's been kind of looking for like price manipulation, like what's going on? Why is it, you know, with all of these people buying, you know, all of these big numbers from MetaPlanet, MicroStrategy, you know, GameStop coming in, we're seeing Bitcoin be talked about constantly. Everyone's wondering like how, with all of this, you know, buying pressure, how is the price just kind of going stagnant? And it's probably because there's some long-term sellers. Like, it's literally simple, but, you know, sells and buys are being matched here in the market. And further, we're seeing a lot of macroeconomic factors playing out right now. And this is Bitcoin maturing. I think this is, you know, Bitcoin going through its kind of like puberty phase here. Bitcoin 16, this is like, it's growing up. And in all, you know, like realistic terms, if you look at what Bitcoin did in the last week or so, like, it's holding up very strong. We're at 85K right now. Every other market in the world is getting absolutely nuked. You know, people are freaking out about 4% changes. Us Bitcoiners are like, yo, 7% change or whatever it is in the last week. Like that's chump change. Like what are we complaining about here? Bitcoin's going sideways while the world's melting down. It seems like Bitcoin was created just for this moment. Now, you know, just kind of doubling down on the sentiment from the chat, you know, Matt Hogan at Bitwise, bro, like you're kind of bearish. $1 million in 5 years. Come on, we got to pump those numbers up. No. I'm kind of trolling there because I think, you know, $1 million Bitcoin in 5 years. So by next cycle, I think that is a very realistic, conservative price prediction of where Bitcoin is going. And that number of like, we need, you know, $1 trillion of corporation buy pressure to get into the market. And then we can really have this conversation of what's going on. And if you pull up that infographic, the main and the first key development in there, I think, is the signal there, which is the FASB rule change going into effect there on the left side, Nico. So that is like, that's probably why we're seeing this Q to Q you know, increase of corporations holding Bitcoin on their treasury. Like this is the big move that has changed since last year that a lot of us have it. Like we forget that this just happened. You know, as Bitcoiners, I think a lot of times we are always thinking in the future, because in the present, like we already understand all of this stuff about Bitcoin, and we forget that most people don't understand Bitcoin like we do. So we're always projecting into the future, like what's going to happen. But the ripple effects of all of the good news we've seen hasn't obviously been saturated into the market. And we are seeing, I think, a lot of bullish indications that things are going to get crazy. And while Nico's talking, I'm starting to get the feeling that this is a 2017 cycle. Like everyone's mad in the chat. Everyone's, you know, like attacking each other in the chat. All of us Bitcoiners are like, man, there's maybe a recession and it's over. Was 109K the top. And it starts to feel like this is the Max Payne scenario here where Bitcoin, you know, maybe it pumps a little bit by the end of this month or whatever, and then it goes sideways and we're like, oh man, it's over again. And then we just get some incredible rippage by the end of the year. I was having a conversation with a friend and he's like, man, I was just talking to one of my friends who's a Bitcoin trader and he's saying the most bullish stuff possible. And I'm like, okay, like feed me with the hopium, because I'm starting to feel like the fatigue in the Bitcoin market is really starting to hit everyone. We're just like, man, what's going on? It's literally the meme, like, poking Bitcoin, can you do something already? But this is the buying opportunity of a lifetime. With all of this information, we're seeing all of the biggest corporations in the world start to, at the very least, talk about Bitcoin. We're seeing literally the biggest economic power in the world, the United States, talk about acquiring Bitcoin. We're seeing some of the, you know, billionaires in the world basically play Hungry Hippo, acquiring as much Bitcoin. And we're at 85K Bitcoin, which means that every person out there, a layman, an average person, now has the opportunity to buy Bitcoin at, what is it, like a 25% discount or 20% discount or whatever it is. Like I'm starting to feel bullish in the face of all of the bearish price movement. It's like, dude, this is gonna be it. I'm doubling down, Nico. The end of this year is gonna be lit. You heard it here first, and I will eat the humble pie if I'm wrong, but the end of this year, we're gonna have a good Christmas. I'm gonna hold myself to that one, Nico.
Opti is starting a paid group. He will drop it in the chat. We just broke 500 live viewers on YouTube. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos and gets this message forward. Anyways, guys, it's going to be an incredible show. We still got the news segment. We got tons to unpack, tons to talk about. We'll be right back. Let's check it out. Here we go. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSPT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, this is Opti. Sometimes he forgets to set up the live stream, but if you use promo code SIMPLY,
that's not what happened. That's not
you
what
get 5% off anything on the CoinKite store. So use promo code SIMPLY, get yourself a Cold Card MK4 or a Cold Card Q, the one that Opti is holding in his hand. Guys, this is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet in the game. Again, use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off. Check out Cold Card today. Go to coldcard.com or check the link in the video/podcast description and you'll get 5% off for using the Simply promo code. Where's oh, I took Opti off.
Damn, bro.
All right, so let's talk about this. I thought this was really interesting. Very interesting line that Bukele said at the press conference yesterday. And you know what? It's one of those move the Overton window type of shows and types of days. And again, I know because it's outside of the Overton window, some people might get a little bit upset. Some people are be like, nah, some people are not 100% with it. But you know what? We're not going to take a stance on any of this. We're just going to show you guys, ask some questions, and, let's see where that leads us. So I'm going to play you guys the clip of the two Bitcoin presidents at the White House in the Oval Office. Let's check it out.
We know that.
Wow, did we lose Nico? Dude, that Puerto Rican internet is crazy. All right, guys, give us 1 second. Dude, God.
That was the journalist.
All right, Nico, redo it.
The safest country in the Western
Nico, redo it. We lost you.
And,
sorry about that.
Dude, your internet, you need a generator, bro, at least for the next month.
I'll be back in Miami in 2 weeks, so just a little pit stop here.
Rip our viewers
here in Puerto Rico. All right, so let me play it again.
And we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we will do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world. That was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, if sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So,
That's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to.
So again, talk about moving the Overton window, right? What happened in El Salvador was a very, very aggressive move by the state to essentially secure the country. Now, the con of that, like the downside is a lot of people had to be in prison, specifically the people that were perceived as violent or criminals. And of course, that you have to empathize with that. And I'm going to try not to take a stance on all this. I technically could because I'm from the region. I am from Venezuela. So personally, I like that, right? Because the other side of the equation is essentially, you have a very, crime-ridden society. And that's the norm in Latin and Central America. That is the norm. In El Salvador, what you see there is not the norm. And to also, if you're coming at it from a Western democracy or Western country type of standpoint, and you're trying to apply that logic onto a country in Central and Latin America, you're lost in the sauce. One doesn't equate to the other. And then this leads me to, I'm going to try to connect this to what I was talking about in the beginning. What is the role of government? So the role of government in my eyes is to protect private property and safety, right? That's why you give them the monopoly on violence. That's why you pay the income tax. It's to protect you. But if they don't do that, right? I mean, isn't that the very definition of a failed government, right? And again, the reason that I say this is out of the Overton window is because, like, I think you obviously want due process. You obviously want people to have a fair trial. You don't want the government to have the ability to just nab someone and just put them in prison and tell you give you zero reason as to why they're doing that, right? But if you look at it from a results perspective, right? Nayib Bukele is the most popular president in the Americas. That's number one. Number two, El Salvador went from the murder capital of the world to one of the safest countries in the world. And it's also not a very wealthy country either. So to say that there's nothing to learn from what he did over there, I think is incredibly naive. And I think it's incredibly, like, you're full of yourself. You're not really thinking about it, because that line is incredibly powerful. It's like, it's not about imprisoning a percentage of the population. It's about liberating the majority of the population that follows the law, pays their taxes, and does what it's supposed to do in a thriving society, right? So I think it's like, again, what happened there was the Overton window was shifted. The discourse was discussed to the point where the president of the United States was looking at him saying, like, wait a second. Yeah, that's a really good line. I might take that, because we kind of live in this world where it's kind of like, it's like what I saw when Nayib Bukele got into office was this global attack by the media worldwide. And essentially it attacked him because of his hard on crime policies. But I haven't seen any media outlet follow up and basically say, hey, you know what? El Salvador successfully lowered their murder rate. They have successfully grown their GDP. They're successfully growing their economy. Like, the country is thriving. I haven't seen any of the media talk about that. It's always been one-sided. So anyhow, I'm going to open it up. Opti, I see Opti cracking up.
Sorry, I'm trolling you in the Rumble chat. Sorry,
we did break 2,000 live viewers across YouTube, and yeah, all your cousins from El Salvador are here. Now our crime is up, Nico. Nico thinks paying his taxes gives him the right to imprison Opti. Oh my God. The Rumble chat, Nico loves everyone telling you he's from the Rumble chat is absolutely savage. But this is why we stream on Rumble. So you guys could absolutely shit on me and Opti. They got due process. People keep claiming they didn't. Oh my God, it's savage. Anyways, wrecked. But yes, we just broke 2,000 live viewers across YouTube, Rumble, and X. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. You guys are listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. Opti, this is a spicy topic, bro. This is a move the Overton window type of episode. What's your take on this, bro?
I mean, I kind of said it yesterday, and I got trolled on Twitter a little bit, saying that I'm going full G Money on this one. So shout out to our boy G Money. Go listen to Rug Pull Radio if you really want to hear the outside of the Overton window rips around Bitcoin. My take was pretty simple. Like, it's very interesting that Nayib Bukele is even at the White House talking to Trump. And, you can attribute this to a lot of different factors, but as a Bitcoiner, as a Bitcoin show, I will attribute this to Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin brought Nayib Bukele into the White House. It was a tiny country. Again, I haven't updated the stats here on El Salvador's GDP, but the last time I checked, it was like 32 billion. That's like basically non-existent in the global, ranking of GDPs out there. It's a tiny country. It was literally the murder capital of the world. And in how long? 4 years, going on 4.5 here, basically, he's completely flipped it around. And so, hey, if people are going to be critical about how he did it, obviously it does remind me of a lot of Gladstein's work of us having, first world financial privilege, etc. But I mean, it's incredible what he's done for his country. And yes, we can attribute it not just to Bitcoin, but I think to him being a Bitcoiner. And remember the tweet or the truth post that Trump did when he was talking about this meeting yesterday, and it was President B. I don't think that is necessarily just like, him saying things. I think that is, the signal here. It's like he is the official president, Bitcoin president of the world right now. And yes, Trump is trying to be America's Bitcoin president, but I think this is all playing out. I've said it before, first thing Bukele had to do was fix the money or allow people to use Bitcoin, and the next thing he needed to do is some semblance of law and order. And yes, it's not necessarily something that I advocate for all the time. Like I'm not a statist here. Like I don't believe in state section violence, but we all know that the state does have the monopoly on violence here. And hey, like if as a citizen of the country, I have two choices of literally the most dangerous country in the world or the safest country in the world, then yeah, I want the state to imprison the criminals so that the millions of people in my country can have a semblance of a life here. Like, I don't think it's that difficult. I don't think it should be as outside of the Overton window as it's been made, and it shouldn't be as politicized as we're seeing in the corporate press. It's like, this is their job. Like, whatever happened to the government's job is to protect its citizens. Like, how is this a crazy idea? This is literally what they're supposed to be doing, and yet someone that's a strong leader in a fallen world, basically at this point, comes in, gets some law and order back in this country, and he's the evil guy. Like, it makes no sense.
I mean, it does make sense, and this is I'm going to connect it with what we were talking about in the early part of the episode. It absolutely makes sense. It makes sense if your government is run on fiat, right? Fiat misaligns incentives. This is I don't even want to go there, but this is what's happening. You have governments that their incentives are completely misaligned from their citizens, and that is literally because they have a money printer. Because they have a money printer, think about it. If they had no money printer, the only form of revenue that a government would have would be via direct taxation, meaning they would actually have to do good by their constituents, or their constituents would just say, you know what, like, I'm not getting anything in return. Why should I do this, right? But we don't live in that type of world. We live in a world where government's form of revenue is a money printer, and that completely misaligns incentives in society. Do you think it's a coincidence? I'm going to drop this, all right, because it's lots of coincidences these days. Do you think it's a coincidence that the first pro-Bitcoin president in the US was almost assassinated twice? Do you think it's a coincidence that the first Bitcoin president ever has the highest popularity ratings in the Americas? Do you think that's a coincidence? I don't think so. Do you think it's a coincidence that the first Bitcoin country is one of the safest countries in North and South America? Do you think that's a coincidence? No. I think what's happening is they have fixed the base layer of society. I think if the base layer of society is fundamentally corrupt and broken, you're going to get corrupt actions and you're going to get corrupt incentives. And I think if you fix the base layer, I mean, apply it to you guys. You guys have adopted Bitcoin, right? I'm assuming a percentage of you guys that are watching Simply Bitcoin have, right? What has Bitcoin done for you? I've heard it from so many people. I care about my health now. You know, there's a spiritual component to it. I'm thinking about the future. You know, I'm hopeful about the future. Like, that's just on an individualistic level. Could you imagine that change of viewpoint, but from a government perspective or from a large corporation? It changes the world fundamentally to the core, right? So again, I don't think these are coincidences. I'm picking up patterns. It's clear as day. We live in an upside down world where the government's primary function is safety, right? And to protect law abiding citizens and to protect their private property. We live in a world where that is considered abnormal. And if you want that as a citizen, you're a radical. That is crazy, right? This is how far fiat has broken the system. Anyways, Beau, what are your thoughts here? I'm so prepared for your well-versed political response. Hit us with it.
I'm going to stay exactly as apolitical as you think I am and actually take a whole different view on this. Is just that we get exposed all the time, 24/7, to the ideas of people all around the world, thought leaders, pioneers, and there's a level of integration and influence that people can exert on us from afar through a digital medium. And there's a ton of change and a ton of influence that happens in that medium. But I think the real game changer here is that anybody who's been to a conference or gone to an in-person event knows that it's very different to see someone on a screen or see their tweets and be influenced by them versus to spend a day with them, to be in their energy, to actually have that kind of interaction with them. It's a vastly different level of impact that you get from being in person with people. And I don't know for sure, but I would guess this is the first time that Bukele and Trump have been in the same room hanging out. And I can only imagine that that serves not just as them meeting, but as kind of an accelerant to almost anything that Trump was already thinking about doing, because now he's sitting across from the in-person example of taking this to the logical extreme of not just law and order, but what does it mean to put an entire country on a Bitcoin standard? And so I'm really focused here just on what it means for them to spend time in person together, take out any kind of political viewpoint. I think that that is the real impact, is that they both shared space.
Gotcha. 100%. Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
I mean, I kind of gave my take, bro. Like, I doubling down on what Beau said, man. Putting your country on a Bitcoin standard, like, that's the big move here. And it's really like, we talk about it constantly, and everyone's going to yell at me because, the meme review isn't on the show anymore. But like, if you really do live the Bitcoin memes, they aren't just memes. Like, being a Bitcoiner is much more than just stacking Bitcoin. It's a point of view. It's a way that you view the world. It's a lens that you intake information and how you act and interact with the world. And this is a fundamentally paradigm shifting perspective here. And this is why, we constantly double down on this idea that Bitcoin is much more than just like money. It is a movement of sovereign individuals, of people thinking for themselves, of trying new things so we can change the course of history here. Like, this is what us Bitcoiners are trying to do. And yes, we do meme and we do, have fun. And, we do say the crazy things, but it's the crazy people, the Steve Jobs cuts. It's the crazy ones that change society and the crazy ones that change the course of history. And I think we're living through this. And in the moment, things happen a lot slower than we think they will. But in the long run, I think looking backwards, we're going to be like, wow, things changed. Things changed, period. Like, full stop. Like, we were actually able to change the course of history. And it did all start with some internet nerd money. It all started with Satoshi and the Genesis block. I really do believe that. This is why we do what we do. And this is why we constantly try to spread the hope and the optimism. This is why, the pseudonym is Optimus Fields. I fundamentally believe that Bitcoin will give us a brighter world. And this is it. This is it happening in real time. Yes, people that don't like Bitcoin, yes, people that are fully endorsed in the fiat system are going to hate on what Bitcoiners are doing. Yes, we're going to be called the bad guys. But I think in the long term of what is going to be written in history, Bitcoiners will be looked at as the good guys throughout the remainder of humanity. So, hey, I'll take the hate. We're changing history one YouTube video at a time.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We're at 507 live viewers, 511 live viewers. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We're going to hit the culture segment. We have tons to cover. We have tons to unpack. We're going to be talking about Abundant Minds with the CEO and founder, Beau, on the show today. So let's hit the culture segment. Here we go.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today.
All right, everybody, we are back. We got Beau in the house, Abundant Minds. Beau, to the 2,140 people watching live right now, what is Abundant Minds?
Man, I love that there's 2,140 people because that is exactly when we think the last Bitcoin gets mined. So that's just
yeah. Well, I don't know if we think it. It's mathematical certainty at this point.
Plus or minus a couple days, a couple months.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Abundant Minds, we're based in the Pacific Northwest, primarily in Oregon. We are a Bitcoin mining co-location host. So essentially, we just make Bitcoin mining accessible to investors around the world with no headache, no technical setup, and in a totally passive way. You can earn the best money in the world. So that's the brief pitch of who we are. And we're doing it for so many reasons, but one of them is that I believe that Bitcoin mining is the most poorly understood technology that's going to foster energy abundance for the world. And not only is it our mission to accelerate that, but to educate on that.
But it's not totally passive, is it?
It's passive for you. It's super not passive for us.
Okay.
There's a lot of not passive activity that makes it passive for our clients.
Okay, so what are the rates? What are you charging? What's your kilowatt hour?
So we actually do a flat fee hosting model. So whether it's winter or summer, it doesn't matter how much your machine is consuming, you're getting hosting for $225 a month. And that includes maintenance, operation, electricity, any kind of technical diagnostic, fan swaps, cable replacements. Essentially anything that could go wrong with your machine, we're covering it as part of your hosting rate, so that, as one of our clients said, we don't make a bunch of money on fake repairs that we're coming up with just so that we can charge you a bunch.
Gotcha. And then you guys also sell the machines as well. So like if someone were to buy an ASIC from you guys, how fast could you have it online?
Within a couple hours in most cases. We've got a stock ready all the time of units that are just sitting on the racks waiting for someone to come along and decide they want to make the best money in the world. If you're coming in and getting, 5 or 10 million worth of equipment, then we might have to order some of that for you. We might not be ready with the stock. And in those cases, we're taking about 2 weeks to get those set up.
So are these new machines or are they used machines?
These are new machines. So anything that you're purchasing has been on the racks for less than 30 days, essentially just like your car's engine break-in period to make sure that nothing's going wrong. Anything that could fail usually fails within those first 30 days. So we're just checking that, making sure that you don't sign on and immediately have a DOA machine that we've got to send back really quickly.
Okay, so they're new machines, right? You've used them for less than 30 days. You plug them in. Someone goes to your website, books a call. You guys tailor an experience to depending on the person's budget, and then essentially you plug in the machine in less than 24 hours. I mean, but how's that economical for you guys? Like, for example, like, what if you guys aren't making sales? Like, what if people aren't interested in hosting with you guys? Or perhaps, better said, what I've seen with other hosting companies, you guys just don't have any machines at all to host. What do you do in that type of situation?
So we've always got a portion of the fleet that's us mining. I mean, we are our own clients as well. So we're hosting our own machines and mining Bitcoin alongside you. I'm happy to say that we haven't had that problem yet where people don't want to mine Bitcoin. It's kind of an awesome way to make passive income. So as quickly as we're building new sites, people are signing on with us and getting into the game.
Okay. So let's keep breaking it down here. So, all right. So if you guys are mining Bitcoin, why are you guys offering hosting services as well?
So I initially got into Bitcoin mining as this passive income vehicle for myself. And I was just looking at doing it very quietly. Nobody would have to know who I was. And the unfortunate story was I tried it multiple times with multiple hosts, and it was a nightmare each time. And so I never had any ambition to build a hosting company, but had such a painful run through on several occasions that I decided, you know what? The best companies that have ever existed solved a very painful problem, and losing $500,000 of money that you can't really afford to lose at a certain point in your life is a very painful problem to solve for people. And I know that this is a huge industry that has a lot of potential. I mean, it really is the best, in my opinion, the ideal passive income vehicle that very few people are aware of or understand. And the issue with it, as Satoshi said about central banks, he said the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. If you just sub in hosted Bitcoin mining with conventional currency or fiat currency, you'd be very well aligned with the history of hosted Bitcoin mining. So I was an exemplar of having that really rough startup experience. And from that, had the mission and the motivation to start a hosting company to solve that problem for others.
Yeah, absolutely. So Elaine in the chat says, can we visit and check it out?
Oh, that's one of our favorite things that we do. We do about a monthly site visit at our main site. And this one's coming up April 24th. So next Thursday, if anybody's in the market looking to start getting into Bitcoin mining, that's one of our favorite ways, not just to show how trustworthy we are and be transparent about it, but I also think this is the best educational vehicle, not just for Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, but understanding energy, understanding data centers, understanding the reinvention of money. We sit at these intersection of trends that are shaping our world. And if as an investor, you don't understand those trends, I think you're going to be left behind over the next decade. And so one of our core missions is empowering people to understand essentially how the sausage is made and how the world runs. And so as you drive in from the Portland airport, you pass by our hydropower dam, and that shows you your energy source. We're located right on the city's substation, so you can see how energy gets transformed. We've got our site. There's a site down the road that we're working on acquiring. Both are very different in terms of how they're built. And so you can see how different models of infrastructure work in different contexts. And I just see it, as much as this is about building a successful business, it's about educating the world for us. So we love having people come and see everything in person. And it's
Very
also beautiful. It's not like an oil field in West Texas where there's nothing around but dust and tumbleweeds. We've got mountains and rivers and streams and great food. And I love being in the Pacific Northwest. It's absolutely a cheat code for marketing.
very, very cool. So, a couple of questions. So, Beau, what differentiates you guys compared to the other, hosting service providers, specifically the ones that are much bigger, that perhaps have the economies of scale that your company perhaps you're not quite there yet, right? So, why should people go to Abundant Minds versus perhaps some of the other bigger players?
Yeah, I think what separates a smaller company from a larger company in a lot of cases is the kind of experience that you get. It's not like you're a factory part on an assembly line going through a company's process. You really get a lot of one-to-one attention, and that's what we love providing is not just setting you up quickly and having a hands-off service where you never hear from us again, but being very communicative and having a lot of like private events, insider talks where we're having people come in and educate our clients from the industry who you couldn't pay for time if you wanted to. Really just providing that one-to-one service, and also it being a truly inclusive service. So my biggest regret, or my biggest painful experience, apart from just setting up with a host who really didn't care whether I made money or not, was getting in and not being told that on a $500,000 investment, I would have an upfront $30,000 repair and diagnostic bill to essentially have a college intern go through and very poorly diagnose my machines that I was getting set up. So when people get into this industry, I think they're often very surprised by how many different ways they can be nickel and dimed. And that's one, understanding and just there being a lack of understanding and it being a new industry. But it's also just a business model trend that seems to be the way that most hosts do it. So we do everything possible to make this as hands-off and seamless and headache-free as it possibly can be for people, and offer a premium service so that you can focus on getting educated and being a more empowered investor rather than focusing on managing whether your repairs are going well or not.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Opti?
Yeah, I want to circle back to something, Beau, because you said it very quickly, and I think it's very important to double down on this idea. And I know you can elaborate. You were telling us this before the show, but you said Bitcoin mining is key to an abundant energy future. Can you explain and expand on that for the audience out there? Because I'm sure a lot of people are just like, yeah, cool, bro. Like, you're trying to take my money, but like, what do you even mean by this?
So in the smaller sense, in the Northwest, our mission is to lower the cost of energy for everybody in our region. It's part of why we're regionally focused, apart from just having what I think is the ideal climate. I call it Eden for Bitcoin miners. We also have the unique ability to impact the grid up here. And when we participate in demand response and curtail our load, turning off for 1% of the year just to give that energy back at peak periods, with a very small pinprick, essentially, we're playing grid scale acupuncture and lowering the friction in the energy system and making resources available, essentially increasing the flow by removing ourselves for that brief period of time. And that 1% of time that we cut off actually saves 10 to 15% of the costs that are incurred throughout the year for utilities. So that's what we're doing in a local sense. But for Bitcoin mining broadly, there's this scale that probably many Bitcoiners have heard of called the Kardashev scale, where you can class a civilization by how much energy it's able to utilize and store. And it runs from class 0 to class 5, or type 0 to type 5. And we are a type 0 civilization. So we're still like stone tools and making fire with sticks in terms of how much energy we can channel. And type 1 is when you can channel all of the energy available on a planet. And once we get to that level, we start moving up the civilizational scale and start unlocking these true to life realities like Star Trek and Star Wars, where amazing technology becomes available, unbelievable advances in how we live as a civilization, and it's all founded on energy. And the reason that Bitcoin mining is that unlock is because it's the first essentially bottomless pit of desire for energy that's ever existed. You know, whether you were able to innovate in energy in previous decades, you didn't necessarily have a 24/7 demand for that anywhere in the world. And the system of incentives called the Bitcoin network is the first 24/7 bottomless pit of demand for energy that incentivizes building new, better, and more abundant energy resources and making better use of our civilizational resources that we've ever had. So that, coupled with the insatiable demand for AI compute, which is a whole other topic we can talk about, bootstrapping between Bitcoin and AI. But to me, Bitcoin mining is that key unlock that moves us closer to being a type 1 civilization.
Love that.
Man, I absolutely love that.
And look, I want to pop in here again and just kind of expand a little more on this, because I absolutely love that message you just got across. Because when most people think about Bitcoin mining, or at least hear about Bitcoin mining from like the corporate press, it's the complete opposite. How many things have we heard in the last couple of years? What was the riot, blockchain one, where New York Times said where, like the city of wherever they are, forget, it's like more smoggy, we're going to boil the oceans. We're going to take more energy than Norway or whatever, like all the energy of the world is going to be focused on Bitcoin mining. And Beau's just like, no, like we're going to actually use our energy efficiently. And this is going to make us a better society. Like more people need to hear this, because the majority of the FUD they get is like Bitcoin's going to boil the oceans. Like it's over. These Bitcoin miners are greedy capitalists and they want to pollute the world. And you're like, no, actually it's the complete opposite. And like, I'm guessing all of your energy is literally completely green. Are you guys 100% green here? It sounds like that.
Yeah, so we're on the Northwest grid supplied by BPA, so that's about 95% hydropower with a small slice of nuclear, wind, solar, biogas. It's an extremely clean grid region. So we're very proud of that fact.
Oh yeah, man. Awesome. Well, guys, go to Abundant.
Wait. One last thing. You said it earlier, Beau, but I'm gonna bring this back in. And here, actually, let me just hint you what it is in the private chat, so you can do the final send off for why people should be mining Bitcoin with Abundant Mines.
Oh man. Well, appreciate the send off, Opti. We said it earlier in the show. We've gone through a lot of stages in the Bitcoin space where first it was totally dismissed, then it was attempted to be regulated, and then very recently we've got a strategic reserve for Bitcoin. And now we see the Trump family is actually mining it, and that we're looking at accumulating more of it with tariff revenues. So the people with the most power in the world and the most inside knowledge are looking at getting into Bitcoin mining right now, and actually already are in it. So the question for anybody listening is, what are you doing?
Boom.
You're against
Now listen, that's called motherfucking bond.
Go check out abundantminds.com for more information. This is the CEO, Beau, on today Simply Bitcoin Live. Also, do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Bitcoin 2025. It's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference in the world. It's happening this year in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's coming up May 27th through the 29th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. Embrace game theory. This is the world's largest Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. You guys definitely don't want to miss it. Again, May 27th through the 29th. Get your tickets now before the prices increase. Scan the QR code on your screen. Use promo code SIMPLY. You get 10% off to the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world, Bitcoin 2025. We will have a booth there. We will be there. This whole Simply Bitcoin crew will be there. We hope to see you guys there. Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas, Nevada, May 27th through the 29th. Get your tickets now. All right, everybody. Love you all. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.